The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame.
Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm Raygan Kelly, and I'm joined by the boys.
Nate Heininger.
What's up, Shane Nation? It's your boy, Shane Kelly.
Oh, what an off-putting opening. This is horrible.
You know, Laura's not on this episode, and so this is our masculine combat platformer episode. We're just
Here to talk about badass robots.
Yeah.
Badass robots.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's where we are at. We're talking this week about Gravity Circuit.
Yeah, it's not inspired by Mega Woman.
So this is a game that, believe it or not, I heard this was really good. I read some like advanced reviews of it. I downloaded it the day it came out because people said this is a short game and like it's in a genre that I adore. It's got a lot of inspirations that I'm really into.
Yes.
And I bounced so hard off of this. I downloaded this the day it came out, bounced off of it, and was like, show's never covering this. And then Nate put it on the schedule. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'll try it again. And I'm so glad I did. This game whips ass. I loved it. We'll talk about what that experience was like. But Nate, tell us about Gravity Circuit.
Yeah, I mean, there is arguably a fundamental flaw to this game that we will get into later, but I'm walking away from this game absolutely enjoying it. And I honestly, I would thank the Discord for reiterating how good this game is, because it had kind of flew by me. I didn't even remember when it came out. I didn't interact with it at all when it came out, but there was a conversation relatively recently in the Discord from our patreon.com/the short game.
Good promo.
Yeah, always be plugging. They're just talking about, it's an action platformer, sort of a throwbacky thing to maybe a Mega Man, but with modern conveniences and modern level design. And I love the games that we cover on this show. We play a lot of slower, artsy, narrative type things, and sometimes I just want like a dumb platformer that is going to be hard, but I'm gonna like really sink my teeth into the mechanics and get into it. And that's what this was pitched as. And I'd say that delivered. It's hard, but it is ultimately a very satisfying.
This is a gamer's indie game. Like, this is truly, it's for the boys. No, it's
both of you have got to stop saying that.
No, we don't. So it has all of the best elements of the SNES era 2D action platformer, and it. Including some of the things that I forgot could be good, which is why it was kind of an odd onboarding experience for me. I had that bounce off experience like you did, Raygan, and it took me a little while to come around on this one. But the thing that works so well, I mean, obviously the combat and the traversal elements of the game are a little bit, Mega Man inspired, but also very kind of fluid. I think there's I forget what that thing is name some games that have a grappling hook, because that's the core thing.
Well, I always think of Hook Champ, but I like, we used to use the word like wow moments a lot in games. And I've said a number of times that swinging is my favorite game mechanic. And so as soon as I discovered that there was a grappling hook that could allow you to swing in this game, I'm like, hell yeah. I think this game actually really tried. Mega Man is a good touchstone, but I think it tried to bring in like everybody's favorite platforming mechanics from the last like 20 years, because there's the grappling hook. You can also Scrooge McDuck things you know,
Yep.
where you or
Yeah.
or more
Down bounce
modernly,
strike. Yeah.
it'd be like a Shovel Knight thing, right? Where
Yeah.
you can do a downward strike that bounces you, so you can Scrooge McDuck your way across.
We love a
enemies.
McDuck dive bomb.
We love a McDuck dive.
I think what stood out to me first about this game is that it's I mean, obviously it's like wearing its influences and inspirations completely on its sleeve. It is super inspired by the Mega Man games, both the 8 and 16-bit games.
Mainly in that in the structure of the game, which is the game is based around, it has that classic screen where you see a list of robot bad guys to fight, and you can pick
stage
the
select.
order in which you do that. But the thing about this that initially did not work for me until I had to get back into the right headspace is this is a game that does not let you kind of get comfortable with your kit and your setup. The different mechanics in the levels are constantly changing. Every level is really different, and you also unlock a lot of different customizable abilities. You have like a full-on loadout system for this Shovel Knight. So it's there's a lot going on like right beneath the surface in this game, and despite that, the structure is still pretty much identical to something like Mega Man, where it's like pick a level. There's probably levels that are going to be easier for you or hard for you. You might have to bounce around and figure out the right order to attack the levels. At the end of every level, you've got the robot boss, and then you're going to unlock more abilities.
So visually, it has a kind of an interesting hybrid approach where it is a color scheme out of 8-bit, but it very clearly is kind of going for like 16-bit in terms of like sprite size, and complexity, and whatever. It looks really cool. I think this has a great look. It feels like retro while also feeling pretty modern and fresh. It has that retro structure like Shane was talking about. But the thing that surprised me most about it was like, obviously this is going for a Mega Man thing, but like, I'm not the biggest Mega Man fan in the world. I've played a number of Mega Man games. I don't know if I've ever actually completed 100% any Mega Man.
I don't think I have.
Played a lot of like 2 and 3, but never like all the way to, I don't think I've ever killed Dr. Wily even a single time. But the thing that really surprised me here is that Mega Man's whole deal is usually like, mostly you are the little guy with the Mega Buster, so you have a ranged weapon, platforming around, killing dudes who mostly are melee hitting you, touching you to kill you. This game is almost entirely the reverse. You don't have really any ranged weapons. It's all melee. The closest you have to a ranged weapon is your hook shot or like grappling hook thing. But a lot of the enemies have ranged weapons. A lot of the enemies are shooting at you, and you need to be able to do things like swing in or grapple in and then take them out with a combo of punches, which I think is a really cool inversion. And I love the melee combat in this. It just feels crunchy and meaty, and like
it's got a little combo feel, And the best thing about the melee combat is when you do get up on these enemies and you start landing punches on them, you kind of stun lock them. So you have to hit them a few times, like bam, bam, bam. But they're not like turning around and hitting you back. They're having fantastic little animations where they go, oh.
Well, yeah. So Raygan, real quick correction. There is a paint job that allows you to have essentially a ranged attack, but it's not like a gun in the same way that like a Mega Man is. But if you can get a paint job where if you punch like repeatedly, every other punch or so fires a bolt.
Wait,
the
paint jobs change your abilities?
Yeah, the paint. Yeah.
Oh man, I started finding paint job stuff, and I was like, I do not have time to just change the color of my guy.
No, it's up. Yeah, all of the systems actually have an impact on how your character plays.
It's extraordinarily customizable. I
already
found a
super
couple
customizable
of paint jobs, but yeah, there's several different ways you can customize Kai, the gravity circuit. We should probably talk a second about.
Oh my god, I want to talk about the story so bad, but let's save that for later.
What are all the ways you can customize him? First, you have a loadout of up to 3 chips that you can equip, and they provide different benefits, and that's probably the main customization.
Yeah, the chips are where you're really starting to add in the
you can switch
sort
out
of
power moves too.
classic. Yeah. But the chips are where you're really altering your move set in a way that I think really highlights the inspiration for this game from across all of platforming's history. So there's a chip that gives you double jump. There's a chip that removes knockback. There's a chip that allows you to convert energy into health, or vice versa. Like you can equip up to 3 of these, and they all cost what look like Bitcoin. It's basically the symbol for Bitcoin. I don't know if that, I have to imagine that wasn't unintentional. But
I think
it
it's an
costs.
R, because they are called rescue tokens. That's another cool thing about this is
That's a different thing, though.
different money.
That's a different money.
Wait. You buy the chips with the rescue tokens. What are you
them
talking about?
and money? You need both.
Okay.
Yeah, or whatever. It's a B with a.
Oh, that's right. I barely even thought about the money because you get so much of it throughout the game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the chips that you unlock, and those unlock, like, I would say, there's 3 of them, and they are like fundamental pieces to your repertoire, and you can actually save 3 different loadouts. So if you like one kit, you can save it, and then you can do a different loadout and save that kit, and in between levels you can switch between your
change
loadouts.
Mid-level. I didn't realize this until way too late in the game.
Oh, I didn't. I beat the game and I didn't realize.
I saw
that.
in the controls you can actually have a button mapped on your controls to change the loadout.
Yeah,
oh my
so
God.
you can set up loadouts. You can customize your loadouts in the middle of a level. You just pause the game and do it.
It's so
I
funny.
didn't think that was possible, and then I realized, I was like, oh crap! Like, you could just change this at any time. I've been suffering through levels where I had the wrong loadout the entire game.
That's really funny. Well, to be fair though, like for me at least, once I found a loadout that I liked, it never really crossed my mind to switch. Although I imagine there's absolutely some optimization you can do, because there are chips that do things like reduce hazard damage, which hazards are the like the non-enemy damage, which is a ton. And then there's chips that reduce non-hazard damage, right? And so knowing this now, I think probably the optimal play would do like double jump and hazard damage during the platforming, and then switch to something more ideal for fighting bosses or something like that. But I ultimately found a loadout that just worked for me, and I played the majority of the game in that same loadout. After the chips, there's what you had mentioned, Shane. There's actually abilities. So you have your primary abilities are just punch, jump, and hook shot. But there's special abilities. You accrue energy by defeating enemies, and then you can unleash these. They're called burst abilities, I believe. And there's a ton of different versions of them, and they're all different, like power attacks. It might be a burst power uppercut. It might be a huge beam that shoots across the screen and you sort of fly backwards. There's one that I used a lot. It does a small amount of damage, but it hits everything on the screen. Later in the game, one of them is a heal, which I used a lot of as well. So you have 4 slots for those, and you can build your own loadout of those. And then there's the paint job, which, if you don't actually go and like talk to the person and like turn in the chips, they're all hidden. They're all like a Strawberry and Celeste. It's like there's a lot of hidden rooms in this game, and usually through breakable walls or extra challenging platforming situations, you will find either hidden or rescue people you're rescuing. You'll find additional health bars, additional energy bars, or you might find a palette chip, which unlocks the ability to change the paint on your dude, and then the different paint colors. I only found a few of them, but like the one that I used for the majority of the game is that your jumps, you now do a jumping pirouette, and you're basically punching with your fists. You're jumping with your fists out and spinning, and it makes your jumps an attack. And frankly, it was arguably overpowered. It changed the entire game for me because now you can just jump into enemies, and a lot of projectiles are destroyable with punches. So if there's a lot of fire on the screen, you can just sort of jump around and knock most of that stuff down with your pirouette punch jumps.
I found that the most fun loadout for me was mostly around upgrading the hook shot.
Yeah. Same.
So your hook shot is obviously like, it's a fun hook shot. You can use it to swing from ceilings and whatnot, but you can, if you hold the button
found
down
it a little bit. I found it a lot harder than other recent games with a grappling hook. Like we played Grapple Dog.
We didn't actually do it for the show, but we
were talking about doing it for the show.
Better than Grapple Dog. I really didn't like its grappling hook.
Yeah,
at all.
I don't know. Maybe
what it is it's firmer. So with this game, you have to be really precise with where you're aiming, and it shoots really quick, so it's easy to miss. And
it's pretty short ranged.
Yeah,
though you have. I found myself missing a lot of jumps because I misjudged how long the grappling hook was.
Yeah, I fell a lot with it. I eventually got pretty good at it, but I fell.
Right at first, I had a whole lot of trouble with it too.
Yes, absolutely.
I think all of us had a similar experience early on. But if you upgrade the grappling hook, the main thing you can do are increase its attack power and also allow you to grab onto enemies and sort of suck up to them or like zoom up to them with the grappling hook. And I found that like really, really fun as a play style because you can, grappling hook onto an enemy. It does damage to them. And then you zip over to them and do more damage to them when you sort of knock into them. And then they're already stunned. You can hit them a bunch.
Yeah. You mentioned it before. This game has a big, like a weight to it. You are playing as, you look small on the screen, but you're supposed to be playing as like a giant mech, or I can't actually tell what the scale of these things are.
I think they're human scaled, but there aren't any actual humans to judge it based on.
Well, there were dogs, but the dogs are like as big as you, but also this is a weird alien planet. So I don't know if they're giant dogs or if you're small robots. The whole
you play as a microscopic atom-sized robot in a tiny world.
The whole story was frankly incomprehensible to me, but that's a whole other subject. But like everything
100%.
plays with this like density to it. Everything feels heavier. The punches feel heavy. The jumps feel heavy. And like it doesn't usually take a whole lot of punches to kill. Even like the bosses are one thing, but every other enemy, once you get up on them, it's just like bam, bam, bam. They're kind of stun locked. You beat the crap out of them, and then their skeletons explode, and you collect all of their bitcoins and their little energy tickets or whatever they are. They look like little like raffle tickets, and that represents energy.
It's very customizable. Like there's a lot of loadout options, and like your play style may differ. But like I think we had some differences between how like I approached the game and how Nate approached the game. I think we both had trouble early on. We can talk about that again in a minute, like I said. But what really made the game start clicking for me was realizing, like Nate had told me early on, like I think this game really wants you to slow down, take it bit by bit. Judge your jumps, be careful, be cautious, watch enemies, learn their patterns, try to avoid damage, etc. And at first I started by playing that way, and I was just absolutely having a miserable time. I was just not doing well at all. And then when I started unlocking some of the stuff about the hook shot and some of these other upgrades, I started playing faster, like more aggressive. And I realized like, okay, really what this game is about, at least for me, the playstyle I ended up landing on was about closing distance quickly and getting in to be able to do damage quickly before I could take damage, just not avoiding damage, but just trying to outrun it, right? Be faster, kill things before they had a chance to kill me. And when I started doing that, I started like getting better with the hook shot, doing more acrobatic moves, like moving through levels really fast and fluidly, and feeling like I was like moving fast and having fun. And so I think it's a game that has like really supports different play styles, not just through different loadouts, but also just like different headspaces you can be in playing this game. I had a ton of fun moving super fast in this game, but it seems like that's not universal.
The movement, I don't know if we've specifically mentioned that there's a run button in the game,
Yes.
right? And it's one of the triggers. And oddly, when I first started playing the game, Nate seems to believe there is a tutorial for this game. I'll believe it when I see it.
It's on the
Yeah,
on the menu.
yeah.
I
But-
ignored it too.
We love a skippable tutorial. I don't know how skippable. This one's on the high end of skippable.
Turns out this one should not have been
no.
skipped, is what I think we all learned.
So the first level really felt like a tutorial, right? Except the first level
Depends on which one you choose, though. You know,
No, it does drop you into one level before you get to
right,
HQ,
yeah.
and that's the one I'm talking
Yeah,
about. That one
yeah.
kind of, it honestly was a really good like level
Yeah,
one.
like
It
a 1-1,
kind of forces you into situations where you have to try the different abilities, right? Or at least I thought, hey, this is, while I was playing it, I thought this is a great level one. You know, I can tell this is the part where I have to figure out what button does the grappling hook. I figured that out, et cetera, et cetera. I made it through that whole level and never figured out that I had a run button. And I think I played well into the second level before I realized that one of the buttons on the back of the controller makes your character move at like triple speed.
Yeah, it's substantially fast.
It is a
Shane,
huge boost.
I had almost the identical experience. And I didn't actually recognize that there was a run until there was a boss. It might have been the second level that I beat. It might have even been the third, but I think it was the second, where the boss has an attack that was, and it was an incredibly powerful attack, and it was unavoidable. I could not get out of the way because it was a beam that the robot sort of jumps up and fires a beam and goes fast across the screen, but it's like very telegraphed. You know it's coming, but it's still so fast that unless you happen to be on one side of the map, you were going to get hit. And I felt like that can't be how this works. And I finally opened up the control scheme and saw like, oh my God, there's a run. You've got to be kidding me. There's a run button. And as soon as I had the run, I was like, it was trivial, you know, because that's how the game was designed to be used. And I didn't know there was a run. And yes, there is 100% on the main screen when you open the game. There's start game and there's tutorial. And I in one way, I appreciate that this game is going for a throwback sort of thing. It wants to be able to just drop you into the game and not have to have like a little guy who's like, did you know you have a hook shot? But also I think that the modern game, like the three of us independently ignored the tutorial. And I think that we probably would have had very different experiences with this game if we had played the tutorial. But I don't know. I still haven't played the tutorial. I don't know how much it would help.
Making the tutorial like completely optional is definitely it's kind of ballsy on their part.
It was a choice.
You're a hard game.
It's a choice because not just a hard game, and yes, a very hard game. But this is a game that's inspired by like a whole lineage of like Mega Man games, including like ones that I personally have. Like I know that the chip system in this is definitely inspired by that kind of system in Mega Man Zero. I know that because I listen to games podcasts about games I've never played. Shout out to our listeners. But I didn't connect that dot in my head, right? So here I am like stumbling through this game. I'm like, I played some of that game tonight. This is I probably played like 5+ hours of the game when I realized that some of the chips that I have been buying, like I had not been also equipping. Like they were
That one's on you, man. That's a little more clear.
But the first chip you buy, like I buy 2 chips, and I'm like, okay, yes, I bought the one that like reduces enemy damage incoming, and I was like, man, they still pack a punch.
I'm really curious how this game plays if you actually play the tutorial. I think like if they want to keep it separate, I think it's fine. Like when I started the game, I was like that. I actually appreciated that. It was only once I realized there was a bunch of stuff I didn't know how to do. It was like, well, maybe I should have done that. Or they do something like first time playing, check out the tutorial. Just a little nudge. That's all I need. Because otherwise, I'm not going in that tutorial. I know how platformers work. I'll figure it out. Maybe now I know. But Raygan, I wanted to address the thing you had said before. Like, I did play this game. My breakthrough that made me get a lot better at this game was recognizing that I needed to slow down, and I did not generally play it as that like aggressive type. I was taking it more plotting. I'm a big, dumb, slow, or a tiny, I don't know, a robot. I'm a robot, and
robot of indeterminate size.
Yeah, and I punch really hard, and so it kind of made sense to me.
ROUSs, robots of unknown size.
I watched that movie again.
I don't believe recently. They exist.
It's a great movie. I saw that our local symphony. They'll do movies on a screen, and then they'll have the symphony play the score underneath it. And we went and watched Princess Bride with
that's beautiful.
With the symphony doing the score. It was awesome. Anyway,
I adore that. They recently did a Princess Bride magic set, and it was done with the utmost care and respect for the source material. Less. Beautiful art.
Raygan's ringing his magic bell.
No, it's too fast for him. I already ended my rant.
By the end of the game, when I was really comfortable with all the mechanics and I was fully kitted out with a loadout that I really enjoyed, I was definitely like playing it like a Mario level where you're just holding down the run button the entire time. And that is when the game actually started to swing the other way and start to feel almost trivial to me because my jumps were doing attacks. I was resistant to damage. I could convert energy into health, and I just was burning through these levels. Now, the bosses still kind of felt like you needed to learn the patterns a little bit, but I went from losing... it would be, there's 8 levels. I'd probably spend 15 minutes getting to the boss and then 15 to 20 minutes just learning the boss and mastering it. Mm-hmm. And then the last 4 bosses until the very end boss, which was difficult, I beat them all on my first try. It became almost trivial. It's like this game has a inverted bell curve difficulty. It starts at its highest. It gets easier and easier and easier and easier until, at least for me, the very last boss, like the end game boss. But even that one I got on my 4th try, I think. And the first and second boss, probably 25, 30 tries, before I was able to beat it.
I think part of that is just because this has that structure where you can theoretically play these levels in any order. And I think, you're supposed to be able to play them in any order. But it also has a very in-depth upgrade system and a high skill ceiling. So as you're playing through, you're getting better, your character's getting more powerful. But all the levels are theoretically on roughly the same level of difficulty. So by the end, I was steamrolling my way through, which I didn't hate. I don't mind feeling competent in a game. I love that. I love overcoming the early difficulties, but
Nate
it's a weird thing.
Brought up the kind of wow moments. There's this moment in video games that's a kind of a wow moment. It's kind of the breakthrough moment where you have sometimes it's that you've leveled up, and sometimes it's that your gameplay has leveled up, and suddenly you've got it and you can make a great deal of progress all at once. And that's always such an exciting moment in games. And the thing that works great here to produce that is that this is a hugely difficult game, and it does have that sheer vertical cliff of a learning curve, which apparently I never learned, because even in my last moments with the game, I was realizing that I had barely properly done any of the upgrades. but the game has it's an incredible level of difficulty, but it is not at all punishing, because the game has these excellent checkpoints where you have an unlimited number of lives. You can return to the last checkpoint any number of times. The only thing that starts to urge you to go back to HQ and give up if you're like truly beating your head against the wall, which I did have that experience,
I did too.
was that as you do the respawn from these checkpoints, you can pay money into the checkpoint to fill up your energy bar, right? Instead of starting with no energy and getting it from little drops from enemies.
Yeah.
And that scales up strangely fast as you do that over and over again. Like, it starts off being like $100, which is almost nothing, and then it's 200, 300, 500, whatever.
Yeah.
And you start going broke.
Well, I don't know. I used that feature, and when I finished the game, I had like $60,000 still sitting in my little bank, and I was using that thing like every time. Like it I don't know. I thought that was I really enjoyed it, but I never felt limited by it, like worrying about running out of money.
Yeah, I felt like I was right on the edge of the breakthrough with the game. I died over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
My experience with the game was I picked a level. It was balls hard. I like carefully made my way jump to jump, checkpoint to checkpoint until I got to the boss, and then died probably 100 times. I had one whole evening play session that was like at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of trying to beat this boss, getting to like the second phase and dying every single time. And I was like, you know what? There's the people in the level that you can rescue. I'm sure that I got back there and I was like, okay, I'm just going to try a different level. And that is when it tells you, hey, there's an upgrade and progression system. You meet the weird nurse robot who tells you, hey, bring me the souls of the robots you save, or whatever it is. And
also here's like 19 lines of dialogue about like my relationship
all that
status.
shit, dog. I skipped every line of dialogue I came across in this game. Nate, can you summarize the story of this game?
Oh my god!
And the stakes?
No, I can't.
What are these
Raygan.
robots all about, Nate?
It was. Oh man! So I think that this game is going for a Sunday morning old style cartoon where every character is yelling at each other 100% of the time in full like caps locks, exclamation point. Everything is the end of the world, and you're the last person who can save it. And so you awaken as something called the gravity circuit. But your name is Kai, but you are the gravity circuit, but your name is Kai. And
got it.
You have been.
It's a complicated story already.
It's a duality, you see. And you stumble into a headquarters of other robots who are what do they call themselves? The Guardian Corps, who are tasked with protecting this planet that you're on. And the problem, the inciting incident, is that there is a virus army that is just out there in the mix, messing things up. They're like,
you're missing the deep lore backstory that was in the intro, which is that you were part of the Guardian Corps, and so were all of the robot enemies,
all the other
robot masters, because that's what Mega Man calls them. I don't even know what they're called here. The masters.
There are the masters, who I think are their own thing. The masters,
and they've all been corrupted by the virus army, presumably, and they've all.
The masters are someone else then. So there's the rest of the Guardian Corps, who were your former co-workers on the Guardian Corps, but they've all been corrupted by the virus army. And so now you have to go and beat through all the virus army. I'm trying to explain it in a way that makes sense to me, because the way it's presented is nearly incomprehensible, and this all could be wrong. But yeah, you have to go and you have to beat up and destroy your former coworkers who were once members of the Guardian Corps but have become corrupt and want to just wreak havoc in the world. And they are kind of fun little characters. They all have silly names,
They have themes kind of like the Mega Man enemies. They'll be like the one themed on like
music, yeah, and like their attack, and like the whole level has like speakers, and the speakers are your platforming blocks, but they also pump music, and so you can't jump on them when they're pumping music or else you take damage. And
some of their themes are stronger or weaker than others.
Yeah.
I really liked the highway one.
Ore mines. I couldn't really figure out what his deal was.
He's a driller. He's a big drill guy.
Maybe I'm mixing up the levels. There's one with like a D-pad on his head, and I'm like, is he like the D-pad man? Like, what's his deal? He had spikes, I guess.
And every one of these characters has a history with Kai or Gravity Circuit, and they want to talk about it, and they also want to tell you about their opinions.
And that's when you press A.
Yeah, man. And it's like I think the actual story is fine. It's the delivery of it is so much. It's like every conversation goes like 8 more sentences longer than you need it to. Like even just like them saying bye to each other, it'll be like good luck out there. Thanks. We wouldn't want to lose you at a time like this. I agree. It would be extra bad for the people of the, it's like it just keeps going, and you're just like, shut up. Like I get it. If it was just like, we need you to save the world, you're like, yeah, and then it goes, you'd be like, hell yeah, I'm here to save the world. But instead it's over and over. And yeah, I found myself, there was a little while where I was reading it out loud to Molly and my daughter, and it was just like so stupid.
It's just, like all I need from these characters is like, want to buy some upgrades?
Yeah,
3 more robots to go. Like
Hollow Knight really did this right,
Yeah,
like
Hollow Knight. Yeah,
there's a lot of similarities between this and Hollow Knight. You're a little platformy guy who can collect chips to upgrade, but in that one, they managed to pack a lot of character into almost 0 words, and this it feels kind of the opposite.
They needed it. They needed an editor. It made me think a lot of Gunbrella. This was not as bad as Gunbrella, but that's a platformer we did recently that had way too much dialogue, too much story, too much all of it. This was close to that to me. The good thing about this is that you could click through it really quickly, and it was all like short like Gunbrella was like dropping paragraphs on you. This is like old school cartoon style where your character takes up half the screen and you have a big dialogue box, and like it all looks really good. It's just, it was way too much. Everybody had way too much to say.
Yeah.
And it only gets weirder and worse. Like the end of the game, no, I don't want to spoil it for you guys. But not everything is what it seems, and there's a whole thing with a whole new set of characters, and I'm just like, why? Just let me jump around and punch. That's what I want to do in this game. Just let me run around and punch.
You know what I always want when I'm playing a jump and punch is I want to be shocked when the good guys turn out to be bad and the bad guys turned out to be good. I really need that emotional.
Yeah. You're not that far from what happens as the game develops.
No, because I have played these things before. I know what happens in this sort of thing.
It's truly, I mean, I was dying laughing at just how much all these guys had to say to each other, and like there were so many. Your character literally responds with just an ellipses a ton, just ... It was like every time it would cut over to my character whose response was literally nothing, and I had to press A to go to the next line of dialogue. It's like, why was that in there?
Can we talk for just a brief moment about Gen Z's opinion on the ellipsis?
I don't know. I feel
you don't know
like,
about this? Okay.
No, I don't know about this. We're all old on this podcast.
We're all old. Yes, we are the eldest of the elder millennials, And to us, an ellipsis just means a pause or a sentence that sort of trails off because it's already outstayed its welcome. But young people think it means that you are very mad, like that you are real mad at them. And I just want to warn people before they do that in their business communiques.
Okay,
with young folk.
This is a PSA.
This is a PSA.
Well, there's a ton of them in this game.
I did notice that. He definitely really likes to just sort of. I think maybe this is aligned with the Gen Z approach to that. He's just sort of glowering from his side of the dialogue box.
I like to imagine that Gen Z is playing like Link to the Past and imagining that Link is constantly seething.
If I were Link, I would be constantly seething. I don't want to do this shit.
Nope.
Do you see how many things he has to lift?
Dude, that's
why he's constantly breaking shit in people's houses.
What a day. You know what I mean? Like, let me live. I don't want to deal with. I got to go inside this giant tree. This sucks.
Do we have anything else to say about Gravity Circuit? I guess I got to just the wrap up for me on this would just be, don't let yourself bounce off this within the first 30 to 45 minutes. Like, I bounced off this really hard early on.
Play the tutorial.
I don't know if the tutorial was the issue. I
Probably
literally
was.
think there was just some element of the movement in this game that I needed to internalize. It's hard to 100% put my finger on. But like once I did, it was a breeze. It's a very short game. It's like I think altogether maybe like 6 hours max for going to be for most people. But like early on, I was like, this is hopeless.
Yeah.
Like something is wrong. This game is bad. I hate you. I hate myself. Die. And then immediately like something clicked. Something clicked about the movement in this game. And suddenly I was having an absolute blast. So like if you think you're bouncing off this game, like maybe give it another like half hour. That's all it probably needs.
Yeah. So hard platformers are something that I consider to be like a thing that I both like and am good at. Like I basically 100%ed Hollow Knight. I've basically 100%ed Celeste. Some of the very end seaside stuff on Celeste is like, I don't know how you do it without. Like,
I mean, that's
dual
really
assist.
unreasonable.
But
one
like
actually 100% that.
But like that's my stuff. Like I will beat my head against these things because I do truly love it and I think that they're fun. And with all that said, I also felt in the first half hour, even to an hour, I was thinking, this game is bad. This is not me. This is bad. I think part of it was that I skipped the tutorial. I think another part of it was that I was also playing Super Mario Wonder sort of in between all of this too, which Mario has the most iconic, predictable movement set of all time, partly just because it's, kind of the thing that established the whole universe, but like, exactly how Mario jumps. In this game, it's totally different. It's so much heavier. And so once it clicked for me, I think that this game has legitimately excellent level design and legitimately fun and interesting platforming. I think ultimately the bosses are my least favorite part of the game. But they can be fun and and if you like that sort of thing, I think, they're not a bad part of the game, but the actual, like the map and exploring it and getting good at it was legitimately fun. And I do ultimately highly recommend this game, but I think, go in ready to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, this game is out there on Steam and various platforms. I actually didn't look up ahead of time. Let's see. It's on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5, and Windows via Steam. I don't think it's on Xbox. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I played it on Steam Deck, which was perfect, but
Yes.
I think on a big screen, like we definitely talked about how this game looks a little bit, but like It's a really pretty game. I really think they did a great job with the visuals of it, and there's lots of little fun details too. There's a lot of lava in this game, like any good platformer. There's a lot of lava. I loved how the platforms that went in and out of the lava, they'd come out covered in lava, and the lava would sort of drip away as they moved away, and like little things like that they don't need to do, but enough of that adds up.
Can I do Raygan's pixel peeping pedantry corner for a second?
What do you really expect us to say no to that, Raygan?
So you said that this game looks good on the Steam Deck, and my first response when I first installed this and booted up on the Steam Deck was, "Oh, the pixels are wrong." This game has a weird resolution. I'm not actually sure. Like, it's like super crisp, super nice pixel art. I don't know what its internal resolution is, but it didn't scale up cleanly to the 720p-ish screen of the Steam Deck. So I had to, but fortunately, the game has numerous. So like when I was running it normally on, without any changing to the settings, like lots of stuff had sort of like uneven scales, like text was really obviously wonky, so there were things like letters, like some strokes in the letters had 2 pixels, some had 4, that kind of thing, but it like extended through, like sometimes giving a weird shimmer to some of the stuff as it moved. Like the pixel scaling was not ideal. But fortunately, this game has a ton of options in the menus about how the game handles scaling. So obviously it can do like windowed or like borderless window or full screen modes. And then you have, I don't have it in front of me, but there were a number of different scaling options. You could do like 1x, 2x, 3x, etc. of its internal resolution to scale up. Obviously the Steam Deck has some options as well, like whether you're doing like integer scales and so on. What I ended up landing on was doing like a 2x integer scale of its original pixel aspect ratio, and then doing having a little black bar around the edges on the Steam Deck, which gave me like clean lines, and that looked really sharp. It looks incredible if it's properly scaled. So if the pixel art looks a little wonky to you, especially text, but really anything with like fine lines or parallel lines looking funny, then double check those settings, maybe wonk with them a little bit, because you can get it dialed in and it looks very nice. But if you're playing on something like a 4K TV, like this will probably scale up automatically and look fine. But on something like the Steam Deck, like it's basically a 720p screen. You really notice if you've got like uneven scaling.
You really notice, my boy.
Listeners, no one else noticed.
I don't know. I mean, I just never have that level of attention to detail, and I love that you do, Raygan. But like for me, I don't know. I bet I noticed some of that stuff and just thought, well, that's how that looks. Not like, oh, I bet this could be better.
It is nice. It has the settings for that.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, let's do a little bit of what's making us happy this week. And let's start with Nate. Nate, what's making you happy this week?
Yeah, so I'm always cautious to like put these sorts of things out when I'm just getting into it. But I think I've gone far enough now to at least talk about it a little bit. Me and Molly and a few of our friends have decided to try and learn another language. It's something that I've never done ever in my entire life. My wife, Molly, is fluent in another language already, and she wanted to learn a third. And I thought, sure, I'll go along with it. And we've been doing the Duolingo app. I'm sure you've all heard of it. One of the biggest apps in the universe. And I've been learning Spanish for the last month, and it's going pretty well. But the app is actually really well designed, and it's been kind of fun. I didn't really know what to expect. And the thing that has stood out to me is that the like gamification of stuff has been such a buzzword thing in everything that we do nowadays. How can you gamify it? How can you gamify it? And that stuff usually drives me crazy, especially if it's like a work context. Like, I don't need to gamify work. Like, it can just be work, right? But this app has a ton of gamification stuff for learning the language, and I don't think I would be doing it on my own. I don't think I would care about any of the gamification stuff, but doing it with my friends, I've actually gotten really into it. And there's like little leaderboards and things like that, and it's been a lot of fun. And I have learned about 1 month's amount of learning Spanish, working on it every single day for the last month. I'm not going to do any of it on the show. Don't make me. But it's been really fun. It's something I like. I did, like most people in the United States, I did like a little bit of a language thing in high school. But that's it. And so like actually earnestly trying to tackle learning a new language in my advanced age, as you would call it, Shane.
So advanced.
Yeah, I don't know. I found it's been very, very interesting, and I don't know, what my end goal on this is. I'm not anticipating like fluency or anything like that, but like I've always felt like it would be, it's such a prevalent language here in the United States. I wish I could interact with Spanish more. And
Come on down to Texas, man.
I know. Well, and like I love a lot of Spanish, movies and shows and stuff like that. And I just would love to be able to hear it how it's supposed to be heard a little bit more than I do now, So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Again, who knows how long I'll stick with it, but as of right now, 1 month in, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm hopeful that to stick with it.
That's really cool. I haven't attempted that in a long time. I took a lot of Spanish in high school and college. And so I've got a lot of vocabulary, but I'm terrible with grammar. So I can like understand slowly spoken or written Spanish kinda in many contexts, but not well enough to be useful in conversation at all. So yeah, someday I should really do the same and try and get over that hump and like actually use it.
I mean, I feel weird shilling for like one of the biggest apps. Like, you see these ads for this thing all over the place too. So they don't need me telling you to go do it. But I've been surprised at like the way they teach it to you, the way they sort of bring it in and like reinforce the concepts and whatnot has been working for me. And I legitimately feel like I have a better grasp of how the language works than I ever have. After 1 month of it. I mean, I could barely still do any of it, but like I've noticed a significant improvement. Well, honestly, one of my main goals of this whole thing is I want to be able to watch the Spanish broadcast of baseball. I watch a lot of baseball. I love baseball. And most of the broadcasts are boring as hell. And then you flip over to the Spanish broadcast and they're having the time of their lives 100% of the time. They're standing, they're screaming, they're just having so much more fun watching the game than at least my perception of it than like the English speaking broadcast. And so I want to be able to watch the broadcast in Spanish and understand it. So I think that's like, I guess that's my like long-term goal for this, is to be able to engage with that.
That is a great goal. That's a really good goal. Love that. Love that for you. I know what's making me happy. Like the thing you said at the top, like I haven't been doing this long enough to be sure. I feel a little bit of that here as well. But I have started playing a longer game, a game that I'm really into so far. And I want to recommend mostly because I want people to talk about it with. I mentioned this a little on the Discord. I started playing Void Stranger, which is a game by a developer called System Erasure. I played a game of theirs previously called Zero Ranger. They came out like 2018. Their kind of deal between these two games is, that thing about, I guess, like some games like Undertale, where they like have a lot of like surprising twists to their gameplay and storytelling, and like a little bit of third wall breaking, and hidden stuff, hidden characters, hidden endings, that kind of thing. These games are dripping in that. Zero Ranger was very good. It's a like shoot 'em up, like a top down traditional arcade shoot 'em up, but it tells a really interesting, complex story kind of in the margins of this shooter. And I really, really liked it, but I was really bad at the shooter stuff. And so I didn't get as far into it as I would have liked. So a lot of the like secrets and surprises were kind of gated on being good at the shooter. So I was kind of excited when their most recent game, which came out in September, Void Stranger, not a genre that I'm typically super drawn to, but also not one that relies on execution Void Stranger is a Sokoban game, meaning like it's a almost Game Boy graphics styled black and white game where you play as a little tiny guy who can only move on a grid, and each level or layer of this sort of massive tower that you're making your way down through is a kind of a puzzle where you have to either push blocks around in traditional Sokoban style, or the main puzzle mechanic is you have a wand that can slurp up a floor tile, leaving a hole, and then sort of slurp it back out somewhere else. So you
Love
can move the floor tiles around one at a time. But it has like very tight constraints. So for example, like you cannot in this turn which direction you're facing without also moving. So there's a lot of like having to carefully plan out your moves because you can end up like facing a corner and screwed, that kind of thing. So each floor is potentially quite a difficult puzzle. And also if you're not paying close attention, or if you get yourself into an unrecoverable situation, or you happen to accidentally fall off of an edge, which is very possible, you can lose a life and screw yourself up that way. All that was like, okay, that's interesting that this developer that I know does good work is doing a Sokoban, maybe not the most inspired genre of all time. I've played a lot of Sokobans before, but like Zero Ranger, this is trying to tell a surprising and interesting story kind of in the margins of the Sokoban. So it starts with you are a lone adventurer, a sort of short-haired woman in a gray outfit who leaps into a hole in the ground to begin sort of descending through this tower or inverse tower, hole, whatever you want to call it, dungeon. And you're like, why is this character here? Well, you will find that out. I won't spoil anything here, but I haven't gotten nearly through it yet. How Long to Beat says this game is 24 hours for a main story and up to 51 hours for completionist. I know from things I've read online that it expects you to go through the game multiple times, but you unlock new abilities to make that faster and easier to do. I will spoil just one tiny thing just to give you a slight flavor of the weirdness here, just to tell you. So the most exciting thing that just happened to me was I found a secret room through a very cool means, one that I was like very, very proud to have discovered. And once I got into that secret room, I was trapped until I figured out a way to open a chest and got a mystical cube that lets me talk to rocks. And some of the rocks have useful hints, and some of the rocks are just really fucking mad to be rocks.
Yeah.
And I was like, this whips, man. Like, this is really awesome. And like I can't wait to see more of the sort of secrets this game has. So if that sounds interesting to you, Void Stranger is on Steam. I think it's also on Switch, but I don't 100% know that for sure. And it is about $15, I think. And it's the sort of game that I think a lot of people will skip because it looks boring. It looks like a Game Boy styled game in a boring genre, or a genre that I think a lot of people find kind of boring. But this is not. It's not boring.
Here's a headline from PC Gamer. A seemingly innocent puzzle game is hiding what might be the most subversive fourth wall breaking adventure since Undertale.
Cool. Yeah. I haven't gotten far enough to co-sign that, but that's what it seems like I'm on the verge of. So I'm really, really liking it a lot. Shane, what's making you happy this week?
I have two small things this week. One is a gaming thing, and the other one is not. I'll start with the gaming thing. I don't know if listeners remember in our holiday season that Raygan was saying he had bought I don't even know the name of this thing. I just call it a Game Boy. I am now the adult that just calls every handheld thing a Game Boy. But he bought it for my son. And what was it, Raygan?
Oh, Powkiddy RS. The 90 years. What I forget what model it is. I'll pull it up. Hang on.
Powkiddy. So on this device, as I think
RGB20S is what it is. It's the Powkiddy
as I think he said on a previous podcast, he really put a lot of effort into setting up this handheld machine to, it's an emulator, a handheld game emulator, with a very well chosen selection of games. And my son has played a little bit of a lot of different ones, but my kid is 6, and he has already had like the full on Pokemon craze. He watched on Netflix every single episode of Pokemon. The ones that I used to run home from school and hit play on the VCR because I had it set to automatically tape them while I was riding home on the bus, and I would jump off.
Hell
so
yeah, we did.
Yes. And programming a VCR is something I'm very glad he will be spared from in his lifetime. But I'm glad we're now connecting over the Pokemons. So I didn't really know which one to start him on. It's been a long time since I even really thought about that. But he ended up starting by himself Pokemon Emerald on there, which is one of the Pokemon games that I never played. And seeing him really suddenly get super into it was really great because so he's enough into Pokemon through like Pokemon media that when his grandmother and mom took him to Build-A-Bear, he gravitated immediately to Mudkip, right?
Nice.
The child loves a Mudkip.
Yeah.
And
don't we all love a Mudkip?
Yeah, well, he was initially Mudkip. I think is an axolotl based creature, and Minecraft really rose the prominence of this obscure, Mexican salamander relative in the collective children's consciousness over the past few years. I don't know if you're aware of the prominence of axolotls in Minecraft these days, but so. Yeah, the Mudkip was axolotl-y enough to get his attention, and now he is kind of making his way through Pokemon Emerald, and it's really nice to see him able to follow a game of that complexity. Like he is doing a lot of the same things I did at that age, like kind of grinding by killing every single Houndoom or whatever on Route 101. Killing every single bird and dog that he can find in the tall grass until he's way over leveled.
Your son needs therapy.
I was gonna say, this is in the game, right? Or
yes, this is in the no, this is we also on the way to and from school each day try and find any small animals that we can attack. So that's been really lovely. So first off, thanks again, Uncle Raygan, on that one. We're having a lot of fun with that. But like I said, I have 2 things going on. And my second thing that is making me happy is I have a new love in my life, and it is the Uniball 1P. This is a pen made by Uniball. So nice. The story here is that a couple of years ago, this is really just becoming something I'm aware of now, but God, I'm so far behind pen culture. A couple of years ago, Uniball came out with the Uniball 1, and then slightly later, the even better Uniball 1P. What makes these pens really, really unique is, first off, they have a really special gel ink. I don't know how you guys feel about gel ink pens. In general, I've always liked gel ink pens, but the ink isn't always the best. The ink in the Uniball 1 series is Vanta Black. It is pure,
wow, they paid up for it.
Totally black. Yeah, like if you zigzag, scribble, scratch, you are creating a hole into another dimension with this pen when you scribble. And they also all feature a really nice, you can hear this, that's the metal clip. I am a sucker for a really secure pen clip because I am exactly the kind of nerd who likes to put a pen into the pocket on his shirt and have it stay exactly where I put it. So, and you don't need a pocket protector with the Uniball 1P because that gel ink only goes exactly where you put it. But anyway, the 1P is the better model. It's the one I think you should look out for because the 1P is a fat boy. The Uniball 1 is a regular, I'm holding it here for the people watching on camera. It's a regular size and shape pen for the most part. The 1P is a real chunky boy. It's about twice as big around and very short. And I have found that to be just really nice and really good to hold. And so listeners, if you are in the market for a $7 pen, you can do no worse. You can do no better.
I wouldn't think
$8
short and fat
and
would be a way I would
39
want a pen to
Amazon.
be described, but
You might
I
be
guess-
surprised. You might be
Yeah,
surprised. Have you
I'm looking
tried
at-
one?
My problem is that I have such bad handwriting that
Mhm.
any amount of pooling and sort of blurring or anything like that, or where I may drape my hand across it and like smear everything I just wrote. Shane's giving some sort of live demonstration. Oh wow, it goes on dry, folks. No smearing
Ooh.
at all. Look at that. And yeah, I think I can see the underdark through the little circle you just drew on your pen on your notepad there.
Gaze
All right, add
into
it,
the
add it to cart.
abyss.
I'm going to buy myself a.
I know. I'm sitting
lilac
here too.
version of this.
I've been actually
Colors are nice.
I've been trying to do that more at work. Is I have a notebook and everything. I've been trying to be more of a pen and paper guy because I just create Google Docs and forget about them. So like if I write it down in front of me, I won't forget, especially because handwriting is such an effort for me. So I do like a good pen. I like a gel pen, Shane. So you may have convinced me.
I might only use this once every 2 weeks to write a check to my lawn guy, but I'm going to buy it. And I know
Wow.
you'll
Look at
every
this.
time you
Raygan-
write that
Raygan with a
check,
lawn guy.
you'll
Raygan
know
having
where
checks.
the extra $6 that you spent went. So
Yeah. I mean, I only write checks at the grocery store, so we'll see how often I use it.
My grandmother used to write. She famously one time forgot her checkbook to the grocery store, made her own check on a piece of brown paper from a grocery store bag, and they took it.
What is it, like 1912? And they're like, yeah, just take that down to the bank and they'll know my name. How did you know?
Exactly.
It was like no later than the 80s.
Did
Yeah.
she have an account? Like, yeah, I love that.
She.
It's incredible.
All right. Well, on that note, have a great weekend, listeners. Take it easy.
Yeah, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. You can find our show on the internet at shortgame.fm. That's the website where you can find all the links and buttons to all the places where our podcast is, including all the various podcast platforms. Leave a review if you can, as well as Patreon. I know we said this at the top of the show, but successful podcasts say it twice. We have a Patreon. All of our patrons, could be you, get a couple of nice little benefits. One is that you get episodes a little early. As soon as I edit them, I stick them on the Patreon feed. All those suckers have to wait for Monday morning.
Nerds.
But you get it as soon as I finish editing it, which might be Friday, might be Sunday night, might be Monday morning, but most often they're a little early, and sometimes people like that. I know it's not a huge deal, but hey, it's a thing. And then also you get access to the show's Discord community, which is where we talk about the show. It's where we plan episodes. It's where we get most of the suggestions for this game, for this show. This episode would not have happened without our Discord patrons who suggested this game and then followed up and reminded us that we should check this out again, which was a super helpful thing that they sometimes do. And again, our super awesome patrons don't just recommend games to us. We have a great community of people who play a wide variety of things and recommend games to each other as well. So it's a great place to come and say, hey, I played this cool thing. It's also a great place to just keep up to date on the cool little games that are likely to fall through the cracks and you may not know about. It's been a really great.
I love that our community has gotten big enough to where like there are just full on days of conversations between people and it does not involve any of us. And I just love it. There's just a full little community we've got going talking about games and other random stuff too. So
I love dive bombing and disrupting those conversations with by interjecting stuff that really doesn't even belong on Discord.
Keep that shit to yourself, Shane. And let's see. You could also find me on the internet at Raygan.me. That's RAYGAN.me, which is my tiny little website. Mostly has links to my various socials. If you want to find me anywhere, you can find me there. And let's see, Nate, where can people find you?
On social media at NateSTL. But also, Raygan, I want to throw out there, by the time this episode comes out, we will now be on YouTube as well. So I know YouTube is becoming more and more a place where people go to listen to their podcasts. And we are in the process of getting our entire catalog up on YouTube. And so it'll all be there. Now, we will be, since we are small and our name is also the same thing that is a golf term, you have to really be specific with your searches. But
the Short Game Podcast.
Yeah. So, but if you're a YouTube person, check it out.
Or like flailing because Google is shutting down, or maybe already has shut down their podcast app. This is such a strange strategy of Google. They're like, I mean, they shut down everything, but they shut down their podcast thing, and their solution to this for their users seems to be, most of that stuff's on YouTube anyway.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but
well,
if that's
we're there now too, and I know a lot of people listen on YouTube. So yeah, check it out, and what do they say? Smash that like button and that subscribe button.
Ring that bell.
Do a thing in the comments.
Yeah, it's going to be automatic. It's going to be audio only on YouTube. They'll basically just be little videos with a show art. That's the sort of standard thing that we can do very easily. And
but we will be seeing stuff like the comments. I think we'll try and get in there and respond to questions and comments. And
maybe you will. I'm joking. I will, of course. But if you want to find us there, we are there, and on all the other platforms as well. I need to remind me, Nate. I need to add a link to our YouTube to our show page. And let's see, Shane, where can people find you?
You can find me on Mastodon at shane@bird.rodeo, and you can find me on Threads at 8bitshane.
And listeners, thank you once again for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.